whenever you're ready to.
Maybe Clever Dummies, episode number 14. I'm Lockie, of course, joined here by Anik. How are you going today, mate? I'm fucking happy to be talking here on this bloody beautiful Tuesday afternoon.
I'm great, man. I'm loving life as always, and very excited to be doing this podcast. As I said before, we're back stronger, feeling great to be back doing this podcast. A bit of a revamp, I suppose, on a broader sense of the podcast. I guess for some reason I feel like our energies are a lot higher in this second season of this Clever Dummies podcast. I'd almost say
in this second wave of Clever Dummies.
The second wave. How appropriate, though? How appropriate, right?
Yeah. How very timely, isn't it, mate? Timely for sure.
Timely for sure. Talking about timely, crazy times in Victoria here in a beautiful city of Melbourne.
Yeah, Victoria. The city of Queens, they call it, I think. The city of Queens. And
what do they call Queensland then?
I don't know. I just made that one up. It's from an outsider looking in, it's only, there's no way to really know. So what's it like being fucking having to wear masks everywhere, mate? And what's the second wave like? Is it not that big of a deal, or does it suck a little bit?
Look, it definitely. I think it definitely sucks because of how there are actually people passing away. And I think that sucks no matter what age. I think it's always really shitty when anyone passes away, regardless of anyone who, doesn't have the opportunity to pass away from natural causes of just growing old. It's always shit. So regardless of the fact that if it's affecting, a certain amount of people and it's only, but then again, they also said like young people are getting it as well. So it's, young people are getting really sick as well. So it's a scary time for everyone. And I think it's a scary time. I'm starting to sound like Dan Andrews now, but it's because, I do appreciate Dan Andrews a lot. I think he's a good leader and, people have been picking at him, but I think he's pretty good. He's honest. And he, the best part about him, two things I notice about him as a leader: when he holds press conferences, he remembers the name of the reporters. And he points them out with their names, and I thought that was brilliant.
Scott Morrison does the same thing as well.
Yeah, and that's brilliant, and I think that's pretty cool. I haven't seen many people do that.
Yeah, and especially not Trump, mate. He'll just call you, you don't matter, fake news, next guy. It's like, oh my fucking god, hey you.
Oh, good
old man. Anyway,
Trump, he's a
perspective. We talk about perspective all the time, so it's good. But no, that's a fair point, and like, I always want those sort of people to show a backbone and to stand up and to sort of not argue, but to defend positions and not be wish-washy. And I think a lot of politicians, because of the position they're in, they don't have a lot of control because of financial reasons. They tend to shy away from confrontation, speaking from the heart. But Dan Andrews is like, I think he speaks from the heart, so I've got to give him that for sure.
I'd say, I think he's probably
as much as he can anyway.
Yeah, well, that's it. And I think listening to him, because today he got someone asked him a question saying, "Would you, with the situations going on, would you put your mother in one of the what are they called, aged care?" And he said, "With what current situation? No, I would not put my mother in the one of those things." And then I thought that was very honest. And he said, "In fact, if my mother was listening to this news right now, she would be very angry that I even thought about that." And I thought that was kind of beautiful, that him actually getting personal, and which is kind of cool, right? Obviously, some of it is intentional as well.
Glimpse, yeah. Did he hear about what happened
obviously
in New York?
No.
The retirements over there. I think it was early April when they first got their lockdown going. They sent a whole bunch of elderly people into nursing homes, and over 80% of deaths were in the nursing homes. So other countries are like, that's the thing with Australia. We've been in a good position because we haven't had to go first. We were kind of recovering from the fire, and by the time, apparently coronavirus doesn't like fire. So when the fires, this is a weird thought, but when the fires were going, like, a lot of countries had started getting it, particularly countries that have a lot of trouble from Asia. And we have a lot of trouble from Asia. It's a beautiful thing. It's one of the reasons why Australia is awesome, because of the Asian influence. But it is what it is. It just sort of happened that way. So it was kind of like February, March when it sort of came here. So I think we were able to learn from that. So even though we had to lock down as well, we were able to see a lot of other countries. And for example, what happened in New York even though it happened over here in small bunches, like there are a lot of deaths that have been in nursing homes, but not really the same amount that happened in New York. So at least, that's a positive. Australia's still doing all right. It's hard to think that way, but sometimes that's all we can do.
100%. And I think this just set the theme for the podcast today, which is perspective. And I think that's very important because, and I love this. This is how we always set the theme for the podcast. This is one of the best things. I really enjoy doing this. It's when you think about what kind of situation you are, because I'm hearing, people complaining about certain things, and I'm there as well, right? I'm there as well, complaining about being in the lockdown, but my God, people are suffering right now, like truly suffering. America, has always been shown as to be one of the, as one of the top countries and where dreams are made, right? Which is a complete PR stunt, may I add, right? It's always been a PR stunt, and it's always been their PR industry has been always the Hollywood industry, and Australia has never had that kind of strong influence. So that's why they were able to sell. They were able to sell huge products and able to move, multiple levels of products as well and sell all this influence. The point is really, if you think about America, it's always been quite, how do I put it? It's always been very hollow from the middle, I guess. It's never had the strongest of the economy or any of that stuff. And, when you saw them crumble.
Yeah, Hollywood, which is an economy that's based off audience and people paying to see things and putting money back into production, for example. And COVID comes along, you see why they're struggling, because they're not able to match it. So that's quite interesting, yeah. But so what America had, I guess, pre-COVID is they have that influence, so they can always be seen more important than the rest of the world. When, for example, you've got what's going on in India, and they're kind of getting it now. And we're seeing kind of the real travesty that's going on over there as well. So
no one is paying attention there because they never had the PR that America had.
Yeah.
And I guess everyone called America the superpower. And I mean, two things America got right. The international trade happened in US dollars, which is obviously huge things. International trade happens in US dollars. So obviously, for people who don't know, that oil gets traded in US dollars, right? Oil and some of the other commodities that actually set the scene for international trade happen in US dollars. So I think that's some of the things they got right, but rest of them, really, if you think about it, I mean, they've got no healthcare. Anyway, so we're so lucky to be in Australia, coming back to Australia. I think it just shows that, we could be in much worse places, even though it's a shitty situation, but I think we're lucky to be here. I think we won a lottery. I mean, most of us didn't really do anything to be in this beautiful country. So I would go far as saying we won a lottery. We didn't really, we didn't do anything incredible to deserve to be in a country like that. So I think we need to be thankful and grateful for that, and not complain. And people, go on.
I've heard Gary Vee say 400 trillion to 1 to be human. However he came up with those odds, it sounds about right, weirdly enough. So, 100%. For us to be in Australia as well, and definitely so. That's amen to that, brother. That's 100% the truth. So.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you've been seeing the news of all the bloody Karens running around, yelling at cops saying, it's my right as a woman not to wear a mask. What the fuck? You're getting a bit of text messages there, Lachlan?
No, it's just a baby monitor. My apologies, mate. So that might be a good segue to the next segment. But quickly, I have seen some videos online. You can look it up or not, and it's when some of them have gotten a bit too hands-on-y and in the face of the police officers, and they get arrested for like disturbing peace or whatever it is, whatever the law is over there. Some of them get ragdolled, bro. It's pretty entertaining. Maybe we'll talk about. Maybe you should watch it and maybe comment on it. But it's pretty entertaining. I'm not going to lie.
Sounds good. Maybe that's the next podcast of live commentary on all the bloody Karens.
Live commentary. That'll be wicked. Facebook Live.
Facebook Live. I think that could be another thing. That could be an arm of the Clever Dummies podcast, the live commentary on videos of political issues.
Once I get set up, for sure. Anyway, we'll have that discussion off air. It's not even on air. It's funny how we still call it on air, but it is what it is. It is a podcast we're recording and people listening to. So, hey, fuck it.
Absolutely. And I think amidst recording, most of the time we record this, and I think so many podcasts get recorded in multiple takes. Most of our podcasts get recorded in a single take. In fact, all of our podcasts get recorded in a single take. So whatever we do is actually being recorded, and we never edit it. So in case if you ever wonder, that if we're talking shit, we probably are talking shit. That's why there's a lot of mistakes in there. Last week, I actually said something which I want to correct. Last week, I said I read a book by Peter Thiel, who is a co-founder of Amazon. No, he's not a co-founder of Amazon. He's a co-founder of PayPal. So I just want to correct that. I'm not a fucking idiot. I just forgot. I listened to the podcast. I was like, I'm an idiot. Yes, maybe I'm an idiot. Did we already talk about the website? No, I'm not sure.
Hey, don't worry about that, mate. We live busy lives, all right? If you're allowed, if anyone's paying you up for that, mate, send them over to me, mate. I'll have a discussion with them. Right? Don't you worry about that nonsense, all right?
Sounds good. All right, on to the good next segue. How's the parent life treating you?
Oh, mate, it's fabulous, bro. Like, it's obviously, right now it feels really difficult just because you kind of don't know what to do. But then again, you've got to just go back and use your perspective and realize what you're blessed for. Like, Abby latched on and she's breastfeeding really well. A lot of parents have difficulty with that. She's got a pretty good temperament. She's already learning not to only when to cry obsessively when something's wrong. Like, if she needs a nappy change, or particularly if she's hungry, she'll cry properly. But if she's just fussy or she's got a cough or something, she'll cry in a slight different way. So she's already starting to do that, which is pretty cool. So we're already picking up on that. So we're doing our best, mate. But at the end of the day, it's the ultimate difficulty for a reason, because it can turn into the ultimate, triumph as well. So, but I'm good, bro. So it's really good.
It's brilliant. Would you
it's hard to explain. The only way I know how to explain it is to talk about it in that way. Like, there's no other way to talk about it, because I don't know my feelings. I'm still pretty numb to it. You know what I mean? Crying sucks. The sound and the pitch of the crying, it's tough. That's why I use these headphones.
How are you?
Noise cancelling. Trust me, it works. Pretty good, because I have the best partner in the world. So she's a absolute phenomenal mum. She was born to be a mum,
How is she sleeping?
She's sleeping. We're giving it a good crack. Like, over night times, I've been keeping an eye on her and trying to bottle feed her, so to try to give her a 4 or 5 hour window. So that's why originally I was going to bed at like 10 o'clock. Now I'm going to bed at like 4 o'clock. So it sort of changes my day a little bit, but it's quite interesting. So it gives her a window, but during the day it can be tough, because she will sometimes sleep for only 45 minutes. And in that time, you've got to try to get as much stuff done, because when you breastfeed, when she wakes up, you need to be there with, you guessed it, the breast. So like, you're very limited. So, but she's a savage, bro. She's on it every time. She never drops the ball. She doesn't want to be away from the baby for 5 minutes. Like, she's the best mum ever. Like, it's, you'd have to see it to really understand it. No words can do it justice.
I'm sure. I don't think I can understand this as well, or begin to understand it, just because I'm not there, nor experiencing it, nor
I was more talking about Charlotte as a mother, not about
Charlotte. Yeah. 100%. That I'd have to see as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's incredible. I guess now the podcast has been set the scene, talking about perspective, beautiful things of life. There's something that I've been wanting to talk about. It's a very controversial topic, but I feel like I need to talk about it, right? I mean, Then again, the Clever Dummies podcast, let it be called the controversial podcast. And, whether if you're listening to it and this is where you basically unsubscribe, go on. What I wanted to talk about, there's a lot, like I said before, and this is one of the reasons why I was kind of in a situation where I was thinking a lot about, I've been thinking a lot about life and situation of the world and the universe, and there's no other way for me to actually get into this without actually giving some sort of a context, right? For a very long time, my only goal in life is to do something significant, right? And to do something significant in a sense where I make an impact on the world that lasts for many, many, many years. So after I die, people still remember me as my name. Kids learn about me in history classes, whatever, right? It's kind of selfish in a long-term sense if you think about it, but I don't necessarily want the fame per se, but I want to do something significant. But anyway, so with that in mind,
what's the reason for that? Is it's obviously internal, but it's obviously not for the money, because you're genuine about it.
No.
It's about something else. It's about like leaving a legacy, or is it about making someone
I
proud?
think I think I was.
Or is it
I'm not too
dopamine?
sure. It's probably dopamine at a whole
Yeah.
nother level. I guess people get. I remember this is how I all got started on it. I remember I had a major accident, and I'm sure we talked about this in one of the previous episodes. And when after that accident, I remember everyone sort of just coming to be there for me, and I was like, well, this feels incredible, right? I was like, holy shit, I'm so like, I felt like I had once again won the lottery. That everyone's there. You were there pretty much. You were there pretty much every day. Good old Messi. Shout out to
You
Messi,
were you were
Sharul, Riyad.
19. Were you
Yeah,
19?
19.
Yeah.
19. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I
shout out to
thought, I
those
was like,
guys as well, because they were
shout,
what you call the real
yeah,
OGs there.
yeah,
Everyone.
real OGs. And
We
I
can
was,
go through. That'd be a long list. That'd be a list down memory lane, if you know
huge
what
list,
I mean.
huge list. And I thought to myself, I was like, okay, I need to start doing. And two things I realized then. I was like, man,
Yeah,
people are actually
I've wanted
humans
you
are
to talk about
inherent.
this for a while, by the way.
I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. And
Yeah.
Lachlan was, for people who don't know our friendship, and we were friends for a while before that. We met in high school, but Lachlan was there pretty much every day, and like I never had a doubt that we were best friends. But that just kind of just cemented that for me. That I was like, well, I think we're like pretty much, if there's anything. I want to say blood brother, but I don't think even that even matters because there's no real difference between blood brother and any sort of situation, right? Um, it's just one of those beautiful things, and then everyone's there, right? So, and I learned, I was like, well, first of all, humans are really nice. We care about each other. I need to keep that in mind because much as at times people seem shitty, they're not always that shit, right? Humans are inherently nice and we care about each other. Second thing was, I was like, well, I need to do something nice for people. And I started doing little things for people. And I remember it started with a coffee cup, right? I once, we were at Oliver Brown in Mount Druitt, right? Back in the days, right? And I took the coffee cup back to the person who made me the coffee. And that person just smiled, right? And I was like, and then they were really happy because no one had ever done that, put the coffee cup back. I was like, hold on a fucking minute. This is fucking incredible. Is this good how I could feel if I do something nice for people?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it became about doing those things for people. But I did realize I can't change, me as a single person can't change the world. But what I decided what I would do is perhaps change the life of one person or two person or maybe three, right? And those people could go on to change the lives of other people. That's how I started working towards, and that became my driving thing. And I think two reasons I'm driven from it is probably that's the only thing that actually gets me really excited, because then I'm like, oh, maybe it is selfish, the fact that I think, oh, I'm the one who's doing this something good. It makes me feel better about myself. And selfish as it sounds, that's exactly the reason. And I'm sure whatever it is, right? So that's really inherently the reason why I'm driven to do anything in life, right?
It's definitely there's no way it's selfish, bro. It's like it's why people when people talk about near death experiences, they talk about touching death, or even when people lose someone that they're close to, they find a certain sort of understanding within their own lives, and they sort of find a little bit of clarity in certain areas and things that are important to them. And then when you said that about what you went through at 16, 14, you told about sort of me being there for you every day. Like that's something that we'll look back on probably for the rest of our lives, and the reason why we'll be brothers for the rest of our lives, because I know exactly that's something you do for me. So for me to be there wasn't even a question of how many times can I go there? It's like, it's not a question of like, all right, what day am I going to go? It's like, how many times can I go? When can I fit it in? Like, when can I be there? So
yeah. And exactly right. And that wasn't selfish at all. From like,
that sort of leads to. Yeah. Anyway, what I meant was like that's kind of, I think, where you've kind of found a lot of like you noticed different things in your lives. You noticed how that made you happy and how helping other people made you feel. So it's interesting that near death like that sort of brings that on with a new sense of direction. Like there's just something about death that for a lot of people just changes the way they look at a lot of things or deal with relationships or even like career paths. Like I've even spoken about spoken to people that's happened to and watched a lot of shit. And one of my best mates growing up was one of those guys. It was the same sort of thing. It didn't happen at a gym, but it happened after he bloody partied too hard and tried to go back to work too quickly. But that's another story for another day. He's a bad man. No, he's a good bloke. But what do you think it is about death? Is it just fucking?
I think it's about perspective. That's what it is. I think once you realize the weakness and I don't say that lightly when I say weakness, right? Take a 18. I think maybe 18. Maybe 18. Was I 19? I can't even remember how old I was.
19. Yeah,
19, right?
Because you're a year older than me, or like something.
Yeah. So take a 19-year-old who has been basically been sort of shown or been found out that I'm free to do what I want with my life. I'm fit. I'm able. I've got the capacity to do so many things in my life, and all of a sudden you're discovering so many things about yourself and the first found freedom, and you actually kind of feel.
Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
You feel invincible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when that bubble breaks with something like that, and I think you realize, first of all, you're not invincible, and you start realizing how blessed you are to have any of that stuff. Because all of a sudden, when it was briefly taken away from you, in my case, it was briefly taken away from me. Obviously, there are still things that, for example, when one of my right eye is weaker than my left eye because of my surgery that I had. The point is, I know people who would think about that, who would go, oh, what's the point of life? I actually realized, like, holy fuck, I better get the best use out of my remaining eye to see everything I can,
Probably people that would get a disability pension as well, but that's another off topic.
That's exactly right.
But no, you're dead right, bro. Like it's like it awoke, because we were always big dreamers. Do you remember, like, big dreamers in high school? We used to talk, and we got invested in a few things. Like, we dreamed about that life after high school. So when you were kind of just busy bloody exploring new things and just trying to live life to the fullest every day, and then it gets cut away from you.
100%. And I think what I thought I was living the life to the fullest, and I didn't actually realize until I wasn't living the life to the fullest, that what living the life to the fullest meant. Yeah. And I have this thing that I always say to, and I mostly say to Terrence, out of all people, Terrence is
YOLO.
YOLO. No, not that one. Right? I say to Terrence, well, what it is about YOLO is, like, if you have one life, you better make it worthwhile. And when I say worthwhile, you make it worthwhile for yourself and other people. And I always use this example, and I know we mentioned this in the podcast before. When you think about what your life has been, or the past, or the memories you've had, right? You don't remember your memories as the 25th of June 2003, or 25th of June 2011. You don't remember that. You remember the days that one time that we snuck out and did that crazy thing, and we did this thing, and we did that thing. And, we remember the time we held some old guy or whatever, right? Those are the things that we remember, and I'm sure we've got so many stories that we remember.
That's right.
One particular, we don't remember the date, and unless you're some psychopath who remembers the exact date and the time of the things, normally you don't, right? So my goal was...
It's a weird thing for me. If it's related to the UFC, I can remember the exact date. And then I can relate it to my life, and then I can figure out what I was doing at the time. So it's a bit interesting. So
that's really shows what you live your life around.
That's right. But exactly right. Well, that's also true in a lot of ways. So it's interesting. But there's probably some stuff that we would talk about off air, and then bring back on. But there's heaps of good memories, but I think we need to be a little bit older to talk about them. Like, I think some of them are like that, you know what I mean? Like, I can 100%. Talk about when I was 15, 16 pretty easily, but 2021 still like, all right, I just lived that. There was some mistakes.
and I think those memories are sometimes better left between us as well, because we got to have stuff as well. And I think those kind of stuff are really good to have as well, because you remember what not to be. Because someone said, everyone can show you what to be. You always got to learn what not to be, because it's a process of elimination. Anyway, this was a long-winded turn, a left turn, then a right turn, then another left turn. To bring full circle back to what I was originally saying, I want to talk about something controversial. The reason I gave you that whole spiel was to say, because I really want the world to be a better place for myself, for my kids, for my friends' kids, my friends and my parents and my siblings, and anyone in general, right? And that's what my goal is. And I will, if I die trying to make a world better place, I think my soul would be in peace, or I would be happy dying, right? I would have no regrets if I died trying. So that's my goal.
fantastic.
Now,
That's exactly how you need to be thinking, right? Like, it's so benefit. Like, you need to be living your life that way for sure.
yeah, because it's like changing the word is not one thing. It's like I can't say next week I'll change the word, and it won't be like one big thing. It's like, oh well, it's done now.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. It's
You
kind
are
of
what you think, in a lot of ways. Like, you are what you think. Whatever you tell yourself, whatever your messages you give to yourself.
100%, and I think it's really important. And that's a whole other conversation about like a manifestation and your thought become your reality. Now, getting to the point, there's been a lot happening to the world, and that's why I was really thinking about everything, my choices, who I was as a person, and how I've treated people. And full circle.
Trying to go back and see if there's anything incriminating. Did you go back through your page and delete some stuff?
Yes, I was deleting some stuff, right? I was like, okay, there's a lot happening in the world right now. There's so much pain. You got coronavirus going on with the Black Lives Movements coming into, and that's what I wanted to talk about with this long spiel. The reason I wanted to give that spiel is not because I'm not trying to offend anyone. It's because I wanted to set the scene to say where I'm coming from, where we're coming from, right?
I remember possibly in the last episode, you talked about not wanting to offend people, and that's 100% who you are inside. So you just don't want to. Yeah, you said it before. I remember.
Yeah, and I'm not. I don't want to not offend people because I'm afraid that I'll hurt your feeling. It's because I just generally don't want to hurt people, right? Because it kind of, I don't want to hurt you, and I don't care what you think about me, but I don't want to hurt you. That's how I see it, right? And your opinions and your experience are your very own and very unique to you, and I may never understand how some people feel. So that's why I'm wary of what I say. But I don't give a shit what you think about me. So that's a fact. I care a little bit, but it's not too much.
And that's a good way to live your life. So anyway, let's open up the blankets, mate. Let's get into it.
Blankets. So set the scene now. Black Lives Matter movement. That's been a big thing. It's been happening all over Australia. There were rallies in Australia. Some may say it sparked the coronavirus second wave, but that's not the point. The point is it's been a huge issue, and
was it near where you live?
It was huge. It was in Melbourne central city. So basically, regardless of where you are, a lot of my friends were there, and it was huge. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was roughly 10,000 people who showed up. So that was big in Australia. Obviously, huge in America with everything going on. France went absolutely
bigger population.
Bigger population. Basically, the whole world has sort of flipped on its head and has started looking at this racial, how basically racism, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to give my thoughts on that. And for people who will say, well, what are you saying? First of all, I want to be very clear. I'm brown, so right. In case most of the time I am brown. I mean, right.
Yeah.
So
you're a beautiful caramel.
Right. And I don't think I'm racist at all in any sense, right? I have friends who are all the colors and all the colors of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
And
all the spectrum.
All the spectrum, color of the spectrum. And what I realized was like, okay, first of all, it's really fucked with everything. What the things that they're talking about, right? If police are generally targeting people based on their color, that's crazy, right? That's fucked. And I accept the fact there is an issue, right? There's always been an issue, but the issue has been more of a macro issue, and we're looking at a micro problem. That's a whole nother level, right? And sometimes you need to look at the micro to fix a macro issue, right? But the problem what I want to talk about was people's reaction and how people have been jumping up and down, which is good because I want everyone to be involved in it as well, because everyone needs to stand for something. And because everyone will stand for something, that's how we'll make change. But what I realized was in the midst of all this, there were a bunch of people who took this as an opportunity to get the maximum social kudos. And those are the people that I have a problem with. And there's people I actually know personally who have basically jumped up and down, gotten into the Black Lives Matter movement, and started saying all these things. And in fact, one particular person gave me a lecture about it. because I replied to their story on Instagram. I said, well, I don't agree. And they jumped up and down, and they're like, well, you don't understand. I was like, well, I kind of do, but what I wanted to say was, I was like, the problem with you as a person who is getting excited about a cause because you may get social kudos out of it is actually the problem. Most of these things exist in life. In life, it's because of there's so much contradiction in society, and that you may be jumping up and down. It may probably even help the movement, but in the long run, it's doing more damage than actually solving social problems, right? As society, we need to become more effective at solving our problems, both social and economical, and actually, things like global warming and all those things, right? We need to become more effective. The keyword is effective, not efficient, because efficiency would be trying to fix the problem quick as possible. We want to get rid of problems completely. So truth be told, we'll never get rid of problems because we're humans, we create problems.
In the US, they're directing it at the police in a lot of cases, and those that's sort of been the main, I guess, driving point for a lot of it. And then people have gone on to say, like, it's just better if we take away resources from a lot of the police force. The way that they systematically profile and do these sorts, like racial profiling, and just these sort of policies and procedures that exist within the work, like exist within the law, I guess, and just a certain type of people, the type of people that are in the police force currently at the moment, I think they need to do better psychological evaluation, particularly after like 12 months and 2 years and 5 years of being in the force. Even like physical, like it's difficult to get in, but I mean, think about it, bro. Once you're exposed to that sort of life, like if there's corruption and that sort of thing around you, like things are going to happen. So I don't even know the policies and whatever else in the US. I can't really comment on that in particular, but over there it seems to be a real problem. And do you know who Colin Kaepernick is?
No, I don't.
So he was a former NFL player. He kneeled for the protest. He played for the San Francisco 49ers, their team in LA, and he kneeled for the anthem. And shortly after that, he wasn't playing in the NFL anymore. So that's one example that people lead to. And what he spoke about was police brutality. So it was not so much people focused on him as a person and what he'd done and mistakes and all that sort of thing. And the fact that he was also, and this is, I don't mean to say this is just what happened. He was grew up in a really dangerous and like an environment that where his parents couldn't take care of him. So he was adopted. He was adopted by a white family in America. I don't know exactly where, but a white family. So an African-American kid that grew up in a white family that adopted him. So if someone knows he would be able to see both sides of the argument because he can see being raised in this one environment, and he can easily, his friends at school and those sort of things. His friendship group would have been a lot of African American kids because he would have been able to relate to that more in a lot of ways. So he got to see both sides of it, and he stood up and he tried to say something about it just because. And he's getting paid $15 million a year, man. So it really doesn't affect him, but he put so much on the line, and he was sort of. He was cast out in a lot of ways. Like he probably wasn't a good enough player. So the reason why he wasn't playing anymore is because he wasn't at that standard anymore. But in the media and just socially, people persecuted him instead of listening to what he was saying. And it's just the way the police, sorry, this is a long rant on my end as well, but the way the police do a lot of things in the US is just racist. I mean, it is what it is. It happens too often.
Oh, the problem is 100% there, right? The problem is there, and that's the problem is huge, right? The problem is huge. Racism exists, no denying it, and it's not just racism against black people per se. It is racism inherent in every culture, and it's getting better. I think even the fact that we can talk about it is a whole nother level. But talking about Pakistan quickly, in Pakistan, right? People are looking. So if normally, right, I'm not sure. I'm probably in the mid-tone of colors, right? My younger sister, she's actually quite light, right? And people go, oh, she's light, and she's looked upon as more beautiful because she's lighter skin. And so racism is inherent, and it's appalling, the fact that it exists. And I know people, and I'm talking about Pakistani culture, and because especially the reason I talk about that is because I know I'm from that culture. And normally, as the other side, you're being on there, especially if you're, fighting for racism, you look at the society of, let's talk about Pakistanis, you look at them as the ones that are oppressed, right? But, right? And
in Australia or over there?
Well, or in society, right? Because most of these movements exist outside of. No one is jumping up and down in Pakistan, right? So outside of society, you think that Pakistani culture is, basically oppressed. Actually, they're as oppressed as much as they're doing the oppression of. Like, they're actually looking at people. They're literally looking at, in the same family, people. I know people who would go, "Hey, my younger son is too dark, so he's the useless one." Because what the fuck, right?
I don't understand a lot of Pakistani culture, so it's hard for me to know for sure. But that's incredible, eh? So that's happens. So that's the way they speak.
100% happens. Right? But you know what it is, though? What it is education. Doesn't happen in my family, right? My family, has happened in my family. My family, in fact, to the point where our mom, gets angry at us completely equally. She hit us equally. Dad hit us equally. It was all equal.
That was all equality, eh? Hashtag.
It was all equality. We all got our hair pulled equal amount. Maybe I got the most. But that was probably because I was, a bastard as always, jump around, jumping over walls, right? So what I'm trying to say is that racism actually exists, and it's appalling the fact that it exists in cultures that you may not think. And I think that you may not, that actually goes over. And then there's a lot of racism, especially coming in China. In China is one of the biggest, one of the most racist countries. The way they treat other people is appalling once again.
Hong Kong, do you know the situation over there?
Yeah, it's nuts, right? And what's China doing? That's a whole other podcast we can make about, because China is doing some dodgy shit. I mean, if they're going to come after us, let them do.
They have the resources, and they're doing it in Australia. They're doing it the smart way, because we've got smart laws, where the US is a little bit, sometimes they get a bit crazy, so people exploit a lot better. Like what they did is they just, outsourced 97% of the medical supply in the US. Like, think about that shit, bro.
And it's all so it's, you talk about coronavirus being a threat. Dare I say China could be one, but I don't know that well.
Well, where did it come out of, brother? Like, the thing about it that's crazy. Like, this is the only thing that's made me question everything else. I can honestly understand both sides. Okay, there was one thing that happened in China, in Wuhan, in the lab remember the lab that was spoken about for a long time, and did it exist? And they found out it existed. Where is it? It's near a hotspot. Yep. Should we shut it down? It got shut down. They believe that because what happens in China essentially is they got it really bad because they live so close together. They shut shit down. Like, if you live in an apartment block, wooden boards are put in front of an apartment block. So when they fucking got coronavirus, they shut it down because they're able to, where in the US they're not. So that's why it's just a different level of freedom. As they say, Tifa, you can get freedom or security, not both. So if you have a lot of freedom, shit can go crazy. But again, we're going into podcast topics that are crazy. But the lab that was close by, man, like, they had the virus. They were researching it because they wanted to know how it worked and how they could stop it. They for whatever reason, they made it stronger, and then it got out. And then just now it's spread again, and a lot of international travel goes out of China. So that's kind of where it goes from there. The details of it are super shady. So that's why you can't fucking believe everything that you bloody watch and read and listen to and that sort of thing. But when legit people are saying it, like, it makes you think. Like Elon Musk, he's a savage in a lot of ways, and a lot of scientists, and like there's a guy on Joe Rogan's podcast. He was he's a disease research, and that's kind of his career. His life's passion is to research diseases and figure out where they're coming from, how to stop them, and curing and that sort of thing. So he said that too. So it's crazy, bro. So it's I'm sorry, I just entangled the entire podcast, but it's fucking how it relates to China and how that's a threat, but then this COVID. But at the end of the day, man, it fucking happened. It is what it is. Anyway, we need to get back to that fucking important topic of fucking Black Lives Matter, because we just dancing around it. I apologize.
I know. But just quickly on that, because look, no denying it, there's a possibility, right? But the only reason I haven't looked much into it, and I'm trying not to stay away from that particular topic, saying what China could have done with the virus, because it doesn't matter, and it might take away from the effort that are being put into to safeguard community from this virus. So it's better not to touch on those things, because like Dan Andrew said, it's not our place to talk about that. Investigators who are much more qualified than us will get to the bottom of it, right?
And he's a politician. He should be able to speak on those sort of things. But China has such a financial influence in
that's right.
Potentially in the Australian Labor Party, that it just happens, man. Like that's how China are smart. They don't come in like bloody. They don't do what happened in the Middle East. They're not like that. They're smart, bro. They're fucking.
Let's put a pin on that.
People, it is what it is, bro. They're gifted, man. At the end of the day, there's certain type of people and people from all walks of life are genetically gifted, aesthetically gifted, like Brazilian women, like, let's be real, Swedish women, number 1 and 2 in the world, like, end of discussion. Anyway, 100%. And okay. China, they have so many people and they just have brilliant minds and they can just do shit. So
absolutely. And I think let's put a pin on it, and I think that could be our next episode, talking about that side of the things. So quickly getting back to the whole thing, what I was trying to say, once again, they're a crazy country and they're a smart country. There is a possibility that could have happened. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. We can speculate because that's what we do. We're the speculators. We're not the experts. But let's talk about it in the next episode. So coming back to the Black Lives Matters movement, and I was saying that there's been so many people, and one particular person that I actually chatted to, right? And they were chatting to me. And this one particular person I met at random, they were a stranger, and we just started chatting. And, it just started chatting, and, she was saying to me,
the yoga instructor on the beach, was it?
No, that was a whole other story. Have we told that story in the podcast?
Yeah, I think that feels like a lifetime ago, but yeah, it was early maybe the 4th or 3rd episode, bro. It was pretty early days. It's funny how long ago that feels.
It feels so long ago. So it's crazy. So this particular person was saying to me how, we're just talking about different things. We're talking about sexuality. We're talking about relationships. And then the topic came to, she said, hey, you must be not privileged. Like, you must have suffered a lot. I said, well, not really. She goes, what do you mean? I was like, she goes, well, I've had a very easy life. My parents were loving. My parents gave me everything I ever needed. And to be honest, they gave me education, and I'm still lucky. And I've gotten, dare I say, I'm probably luckier than most other people. She goes, yeah, but you have to be underprivileged, but sometimes you have to be because you're brown. I'm like, she didn't say brown, but you're colored. I'm like,
yeah.
I was like, dare I say that I've been more privileged than some white people? Because, sometimes I do feel like I've been
growing up in Australia, even within Australia, the people that we like. One time that I definitely saw racism in your life was a certain person that we knew from when we were in 11, so it was 16, 17. And then there was the incident on the basketball courts, and he was just a flat-out bully, and he fucking got what he deserved. And even though that was high school years, that was still some racist shit. So you don't sell yourself short, bro. That's real. And at 16, 17 years of age, that sort of thing happening, that's your entire world. So that's still significant,
Yeah.
And maybe that's for someone else to say and not for you to believe, because you don't want to live with that sort of thought, I guess. That's probably something. But you definitely went through some shit. I felt like I had to say that anyway, just because.
Oh, absolutely. But I think that there's a mixture between just being kids being dumb as well. So I was dumb equally as anyone else, right? So there is that level. So
there's two sides to every story, yeah.
Yeah, there's two sides to every story, and that's what I want to. That's what actually brings me to the point, right? Yeah. What I'm saying is, I'm being honest here. There's been times where you may think it's racism on my end, 100% there was some racism there, and there was the difference is. In the school, I could have said, of course, there was a little bit of racism. Our school had a lot of racism, right? But I'm not saying that any of the racism really, cut me, right? That's what with this conversation. But this person would not stop pushing the fact that, well, you have to be underprivileged. It's a fact because you're brown. I was like, well, actually, you saying that is actually making me, you saying, well, it needs to be. It's not. It's actually essentially just making me, saying that by you saying that, it's actually giving racism, right? Because you're saying, I'm a person who cannot observe a good life because there's just not possible. But I'm telling you the truth, it has been a pretty good life, despite those little things, right? I mean, the point was this whole thing is we, as a society, we've been jumping up and down, which is great, but some of us have taken it too far by actually forgetting the point. And so many people, and I was reading something about someone attacking white person because they're white. Based on what the fuck? What the fuck? I thought this is the whole argument that we had. Nelson Mandela talked about this. Like, I had a dream, that's not what he was talking about. And
Martin Luther King. Sorry,
that's Martin Luther King. My bad.
Nelson Mandela was a good choice, though. He went to prison and then became the president of South Africa. So he's a great example. But Martin Luther King was, I think, what was he, 60s or something like that?
And I think 1961 or something like that. I want to say 63.
Yeah, it was pretty early. 60s.
Pretty early. So actually, is that what we're doing? We're basically doing flipping the whole thing down and actually taking away racism for one thing and putting it on another one. The biggest problem it's actually not the black people who are doing that. It's actually other white people. It's other white people attacking other white people for being white. And it's so much in you that what I'm saying is, if you're going to fight for a cause, but you're doing it for social kudos, that's a fucking problem. Because that social kudos is the problem. You need to do things. You need to understand why you do something. Is the most important thing. If you're going to stand for something, if you're going to stand for racism, fuck yeah, stand for racism, because racism has caused a lot of problems in the society. But what I want to say is it's important that that predisposition need to be fixed, but it's important how we fix it. There's a really good example, and a while ago, this is back in the days when General Motors was a big company, right? And they went to Japan, right? They went to Japan to observe how they went through the manufacturing process. So they go to Japan, they saw all the assembly line. They're like, okay, cool.
What company was this, sorry?
I think it might be Toyota. So General Motors went to Toyota. And what General Motors noticed, they go, well, at the end, when we make our cars, we get a rubber mallet and we knock the doors in to see if they fit. And to the Japanese engineers. And then so they said to the Japanese engineer, how come you guys don't do that? They say they were very confused, and they said, well, it's because we design it to fit. And the guys were like, well, what do you mean? Because what has happened was clearly General Motors hadn't designed their doors to fit properly, and they just tried to fix the problem with a hammer, literally.
Yeah. So high-level engineering,
high-level engineering, right?
That's unbelievable. And Japan were like, these apes, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about, right? And this is a true story, and this is actually comes from I think there's a book about it. I forgot which book it was, about engineering. So that's a fact. Like, if you think about, that's what we're doing with society. If we're going to try to fix problems with a mallet or rubber mallet or a hammer, we're not gonna fix a predisposition. We're gonna try to adjust it. It's almost like you said, you try to pull the door in with a rubber mallet because hopefully it'll fit. It may fit, you'll get the same result, but the problem is that door won't be as durable as the Japanese door in that particular scenario. Or same thing with our society, it won't be as durable. Our problem solution won't be as sustainable, because if you take one problem and cause another problem, right now everyone's talking about, I don't know if you guys know this, one of the biggest problems that we're forecasting.
I think with our podcast, we just need to keep talking with topics. You're covering good topics now, but if you have a good idea, go with it, because I got a good idea of just what you said there.
Sounds good. I'll let you finish, right? But I'm about to finish this topic anyway. So what I want to say, Black Lives Matter movement, I support it. I think racism should cease to exist. What I want to say, but you cannot, and especially keep in mind, people who are punishing people of my generation, whether they be white. So the reason I say people of my generation white, right? Keep in mind, they are normally not at fault. A lot of this disposition came from years ago. Most of my friends who are, white are never, not racist whatsoever. They actually, they're very good people. That predisposition exists from a very long time ago. So cut people some slack. We understand there's a problem. Let's address the problem together. And let's not fucking, jump at each other's throats because we're trying to fix a problem with creating another problem. So I'm going to end it there. That's what I want to say. The last one is, don't fucking do something for social kudos. Don't stand up for Black Lives Matter Don't stand up for Black Lives Matter movement because you're gonna be treated as, oh, this person is cool because they stand up for this movement because it's fucking trending on Twitter.
Yep.
Fuck you if you do that.
Yep.
Okay, that's it. Go on to you.
And Bowen tied perfectly. What was I forgot the first point I was going to talk about, and then you reminded me a second one. But what were we talking about? It's had something to do with psychology, but I couldn't remember what it was.
We're talking about fixing a problem with the melting the door in a predisposition, trying to fix it with a hammer. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I can't catch the thought, but it's all good. That's fine.
What was your second point?
Yeah, so essentially, like the protests, like in one way, like they need to be legal in the society that we live in, because people need to, if they feel that something's going on, they need to have the right to do stuff, but like not do stuff, but protest in a way that doesn't cause any civil unrest and isn't violent or dangerous. Like that's kind of what's going on in Melbourne a little bit. So I don't know, is that, like, do you have any thoughts on that? That's kind of interesting. Like, I don't know, what sort of, does that cross the line of impeding on our society and allowing this great cause to blossom, or does that create, like, obviously we need to put it off, or do we not put it off? What happens if we put it off? Are we allowed to change the legal system to bring it off? So I don't know.
Well, because the Black Lives Matter movement is so powerful. But the thing is, because when something has public attention, it just becomes almost it becomes so powerful, and that group mentality becomes so powerful that there is no stopping it, right? So as a government, once you get a public together jumping up and down, there's no stopping that public. There's no way to stop it, right? You can't do, I mean, the only thing you could do, the last resort, is militarize the country. But chances are you won't do it, because then, the whole
it's
idea of being...
It's already happened, so it's happened over here. They were at the border of Queensland, like... So we're trying to do it with fines right now. I think, like, fining, is kind of going to be the smart strategy, because people don't want to pay money, particularly in a time where a lot of people don't have jobs. You don't want to be paying a massive fine. But if there's 10,000 people there, like, as you said, like, what are you going to be able to do?
What are you going to do? And this is, that's actually very powerful. And this is what I say to people. A lot of the problems that exist, I said, if you want to fix a problem, there's a solution. You can jump in, you put 10,000 people together, you can fix any problem. But the point is, I get why everyone would want to do it now, because it's got public eye at the moment. It's got major public attention. It makes sense to do it now. But it's a very dangerous time, because all of a sudden you're putting the whole society at risk of spreading this virus that could... The problem is, let's say, oh, well, we'll be careful, but we're all staying at home in Victoria, and the virus is spreading, so... what is the chances of... They've talked about how it spreads. I don't know the exact details, but clearly it spreads very fast. And now you start protesting in 10,000 people. Obviously, it's going to cause a problem. And so many people are saying, well, everyone's going to the shops. Yeah, you're right. They are going to the shops. That's 100% you're right. But it's, if we're doing something to fix a problem, to only create another problem, I don't know I see both sides. I don't know if I can give a conclusion on that per se, but I feel like it would be dangerous, and in almost criminal to put the whole society at risk based on one political issue that you're trying to correct.
Yeah, the best way for us to get a perspective of that side would be talking to someone who actually goes to protest and participates. Like that, that would be interesting, because then we'll get that perspective of, like, what it's like. We know one perspective of government and lawmakers and kind of what needs to be done throughout society. We need to tell a lot of people to do this one thing, because if everyone goes to the beach and socializes, then even though you're not going to catch at the beach, but where do you go after the beach? You go to the coffee shops, you do all that sort of thing. So if we sort of don't stop these protests now, it can become anything. But it's just hard. I think it's hard for us to give an example and, like, kind of what that feels like. But I guess we can only provide our point of view, and I agree with you. I think it's like, it just probably needs to wait, But it needs to be our responsibility to not sweep it under the rug. And in 2020, when technology rules the world and everything comes into our news cycle daily and things are changing constantly, we can't forget.
And that actually brings me to something new, which is funny. Actually, funny you say that, right? Well, that brings me, and this is why I keep saying that people are doing this for social kudos. A few months ago, we had the huge problem of our half the world being on fire, right? You had the Amazon forest being on fire, then it's incredibly crazy, catastrophic fires in Australia. And everyone was talking about global warming, which is incredible. And
Do you
then
know
we
how
just
much
forgot.
money that was donated to us, the Red Cross and those sort of places for the fire appeal?
No, I'm not too sure.
Huge. Like celebrities got into it. They were massive, like 20, 30, 40, $50 million donations from celebrities through public fundraising and donations and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's a different thing, but that's just a random thought I had. But that's interesting how where's that sort of money going?
Well, no one's talking about the whole thing, so that's swept under the rug. Now we moved on to the next problem, which is the Black Lives Matter movement, which is important as well. What I'm saying is there has to be a middle ground where we mediate these things, where we keep the problems alive, so we have to fix the problem. It's not like the problem's gone. It's not like all of a sudden, the country's all good, or all of a sudden global warming is gone. No, it's not like that. We still have to think about that, but we have a new problem that we're focusing on. That's called public attention. Right now, our public attention is equivalent to the attention of a 17-year-old who's just discovered Facebook. Oh, actually, that's a lie.
Hormones are going crazy. Probably 14-year-old. Yeah.
So it's just all bouncing all over the place.
Because everything's new. I think we said that before too. Everything's new.
Everything is new.
We're smart blokes, mate. We're onto. If you repeat yourself
something, right?
Because if you keep changing your thoughts and then they match up, we're doing something right. Anyway, I think
that's exactly right. And to finish it off, that's a huge problem. That because we just move on to one problem because we're not solving one problem, and we're not even giving up. We just sort of like, next one. Next one, right? There's so much going on and there's so much pain in society. And for this, I think we all need to start with ourselves, and it changes with becoming more aware and having that better perspective. I think that's the theme of the podcast, and it's important. If once we start seeing those things, each person can do that good. One person, catch yourself when you're looking at someone different because of their color. Stop that shit. Get that shit out of your system. Stop yourself when you're unintentionally hurting the planet by printing 500 fucking papers. Talked about that story so many times. Those kind of things. And to finish it off, the latest problem that everyone is jumping up and down about on social media is billionaires shouldn't exist. And there's been one
socialist, bro. It's socialist. It happens. Well, it's when politics seeps into society. It's happened throughout history. If you don't learn and understand history, you're destined to repeat itself.
100%. And someone was saying billionaires shouldn't exist. And what I said to them, and I said, okay, well, it's like, well, they've got all the money because it's true. Our top 100 billionaires or something like that have more money than the not 80% of the society. It's true, right?
Isn't it like
probably something crazy like that, right? But what I want to say, and I had a really good example, right? So let's say Jeff Bezos has got roughly Jeff Bezos is the richest person in the world, right? I think he's got roughly net worth of 138.
And his ex-wife got some money off the marriage, and she became like the richest lady in the world just from the marriage, the divorce.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And
that's how much money he has, bro.
Yeah. Do you know how much was the total budget for the JobKeeper in Australia?
No.
Let me just look that up while you keep talking.
So JobKeeper or Seeker? Because from the two different things. Seeker might be even more.
Okay, 130 billion. This is really good, right? This is really good.
I just sneezed.
So $130 billion was on Job Seeker, the government subsidy to basically keep people employed under the employees, right? That was $130 billion.
Seeker or Keeper?
Keeper, right? And the reason I want to give you perspective here, right? This is really important, always perspective. So JobKeeper was $130 billion. And what that meant was that would keep, subsidized 70% of the jobs 70% of the people who had lost the jobs, right? I think roughly, I don't know the exact number, how many people got it, but I think roughly it's around 1.2 million or maybe less, right? Something like that, right? Not that many people. So that means, right, we got $130 billion spread among us, right? And we have that money. And I've been, with people have been getting that money for roughly, let's say if I get the money, right? And what the fuck am I going to do with total $7,000? What have I done? I've done nothing. What I'm saying is, what if I've done nothing, and the next person who got that $5,000, $6,000, or $10,000 or whatever, right? And that job study, apart from you paying your rent and all that stuff, what have you really done? Nothing. But side note, if Jeff Bezos had that money, he's fucking building rockets, space exploration. He can do that to further the society itself. Elon Musk, right?
He's a legend, and that's the guy that's doing the rockets.
Jeff Bezos is doing it as well.
What? Really?
Yeah, he's building space exploration. Yeah, Blue Origin.
How did I not know about this? Fuck,
yeah,
he's got my life.
He's got a company called Blue Origin, and that's all about space exploration.
What's it called?
Blue Origin.
How do you spell it?
Blue Origin, like origin.
Fuck yeah.
So basically, as in the planet, because our planet is blue, and our origin is blue. Blue Origin. So he's using that money to build space exploration, and he's possibly give human race a chance to live past this planet. And you're saying that he shouldn't exist? That doesn't make sense to me. Because you're saying by actually ceasing for the billionaire to exist, we all of a sudden we are. Because those are the people who make those things happen. You and I don't. Hopefully we will. Hopefully we'll be one of those people who do.
Yeah. But in our own way, it doesn't have to be the monetary amount.
But what I'm saying is, with the money spread out equally, we get to make less. We get to make less changes in society. Sure, everyone will eat good. But you know what will happen? Everyone will just spend it on gambling and go drinking and go to clubbing. That's what will happen. And we'll spend it all, and the cycle will just keep on repeating. We won't look at space exploration.
Take the incentive out of society, and that kind of goes back to that socialist idea, and that's where it comes from. It's about equality. And but if you look at, I guess, the most extreme form of socialism, it occurs in China. It's in China. So I'm spacing on the word. I don't know why. Their political system. But
communism?
Yeah, that's the one. So everyone kind of has that maximum threshold, but then that's why you're able to get away with paying people whatever amount, and people aren't. There's very limited amount of people that can push. And Jeff Bezos, if you want to live in that society where Jeff Bezos exists, because that's someone who's just pushed it to the extreme. He's tried his absolute best. Elon Musk and those type of people, Richard Branson, like Virgin, from a mobile phone to a plane company, those type of people, like the real influencers, not the real influencers, not these bloody Instagram fucking noobs, the real fucking contributors. They're the people that have pushed, and it's not going to happen in that society. So I just don't think we can't, I'm sure you agree with me, we can't live in a society where you're not allowed to have billionaires.
Well,
it might seem unfair, but it's also life. Like, life is not fair in a lot of ways, and it might be a harsh reality, but it's true.
Life is not fair, and don't get yourself trapped in the victim mentality that life is not fair. Life is not fair, 100%, and will never be fair, but you can make the most of it. You can make most of what you have. Life is not fair, and don't get yourself because if you get yourself in the victim mentality, life's not fair. Of course, life's not fair. I don't know who said the life would be fair. I mean, life's not fair from once again, predisposition of life is not fair.
Do we watch too many fairy tales as a kid? Do you reckon? Is that
way too many? Yeah. And that's where I feel like a lot of this disposition in life actually comes from fairy tales. And people watch too many movies. That's why kids want to move to America and all these things, right? I think
that's a great topic to discuss, fairy tales.
Yeah,
we have to get into it a fair bit, but it's also, you want to live in society where fairy tales exist, because a guy like Mike Tyson is 54 years old, bloody coming back to fight again. Like, he wanted, he fought in the most underprivileged, he lived in the most underprivileged circumstances in Brooklyn, in New York. Like, he was homeless at 12, 11, 13 years of age, eating out of a trash can. So he's someone who took that and put it into boxing and became the biggest athlete in the world for a lot of years. You want to live in that society. You know what I mean? You want to live in that society. He's an extreme example, but I fucking love the Mike Tyson story. It's unbelievable.
Well, the good thing is life is not fair, but life is designed for the anomalies.
Yeah.
Be an anomaly, be the exception to the rule, then you'll get everything. It's actually not. it's not hard to be the exception to the rule if you really think about it. And all the rules are pretty simple. It just means you have to work hard for it. Most of the problems in our society come from is the fact that all we're saying is, why do I have to work so hard to get X? Is always saying, I know a lot of, me too, right? All of us complain about how expensive house prices are, right? Everyone's like, oh, we can't afford a house because our baby boomers fucked it up. Well, sure, they did, right? But also, let's not forget about the part how they had to go through. They didn't have free, their Medicare system wasn't at advanced. A lot of them died at a younger age. A lot of them all these problems. We don't have those problems. We have a different set of problems. We can't afford a house. Of course, you can afford a house. Fucking work 100 hours a day, 100 hours a week. You'll be fine. You'll be able to afford a house. You just have to work more. So if you think life is not fair, just be the exception to the rule. Life is designed.
100%. That's a perfect example, bro. That's a perfect example because that's the sort of hours those guys worked, man. Like Elon Musk on PayPal, 80, 90, 110 hours he's talking about some weeks. It's like, what? If you divide that by 7 days, that's that's 14, 15-hour days, bro. Unbelievable. Work. It's the work, bro. Yeah.
Work. Full circle. It all comes back to perspective as to you choose
potential. That's the name of our podcast. Perspective, potential, work.
That's right. That sounds good. Perfect. Love it.
PPW. Oh, we won't go there.
PPW. What's PPW?
BBW.
Oh, BBW. Look,
but yeah, potential, perspective, work. That's pretty good.
At the end of the day, we all have to start with auditing ourselves, I guess, which is really funny because getting into business world, and I've been so lucky enough to hang around with businesses, and I learned these things, right? And I learned this incredible thing that in business, everyone wrote a business plan. I was like, that's interesting. Why are people writing business plans, right? Clearly because they don't want to fail, right? So I was like, oh, I'm going to write the plan for life. And I wrote a personal management plan, and I wrote out all the things that were my weaknesses. The funny thing about people is when they go to write down things for themselves, they're not honest on it. They're like, oh, no, I don't need to work on that much. I was like fucking 100% honest. I broke down my year. So I wrote a year plan for this year, and I broke down my year in quarters. So I said, first quarter, like first term, second term, third term, what I want to achieve in those certain things. One of my fourth term achievement was I'm going to work for myself. Ended up happening in the first term. The point was, it was there and achieved. And I was like, I'm going to write a plan. And then you write a plan, then you figure out how much you have to work, and you do the work, and then things happen. You got to become aware of yourself. I think that's the awareness is important. Have perspective that despite the fact that you might have to work harder, you can have the same things as Jeff Bezos. Keep in mind, Jeff Bezos comes from a single mother, and he wasn't rich. He was come from a pretty poor family, and he used to work at McDonald's. Nothing too incredible. And you want to take a bit away from him because he's rich now. He's a self-made billionaire. It is what it is. Anyway, I think
it is what it is. That's a beautiful way to wrap it up. But it is what it is, man. That's Jeff. That's him. He's just a great example of everything that you were talking about, bro, because it's just what he did, man. He had to do it. Oh, and he didn't have to do it, but I guess he did it, and that's what he fucking achieved, and that was his life. And that's you've heard him speak a lot, eh? Like the way he talks, man, he's just, you understand why the guy is where he is. He just lives it.
It's not that he had to do it, he wanted to do it, and he did it.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing. If you want to do it, it's how bad you want it. It's E.T. speaks about it.
Eric Thomas.
He goes,
love E.T.
What is it?
He's got me through some hard shit in my life, that's for sure.
What's his quote that he says? When you want to succeed as bad as you want to
brave, then you'll be
successful. Yeah. There's another one he said, and which is the most incredible.
It's like, I can, I will, I must.
There's this one that I remember, and it said, it was, oh yeah, that's right. Pain will last a moment, a second, a minute, or even a year, but eventually it will subside and something else will take its place.
Yes.
Something else. But if you quit, that will last forever. That will last forever. I was like, incredible things. And what he also says, if you're hanging around with, if you're hanging around with 9 broke people, you're born to be the 10. And that's a lot of the problem in society as well, because everyone is hanging out with the same people. We tend to attract, it's called reticular activation system, that basically we end up hanging around with people who agree with our opinions. What ends up happening is we never grow as people, we never learn, we don't explore new culture. That's why we are racist, because we keep on hanging out with the same people who agree with us. You need to explore, you need to meet new people who don't agree with you, because that's why I'm happy to, it's uncomfortable to have someone disagree with you. It's uncomfortable that someone argue with you.
Yeah,
but
100%.
but if you can be
embrace
civil,
it because you can get mutual respect and figure it out. Like, that's the beautiful thing about life, and it's not about confrontation in that circumstance. It's
there's a really interesting story about this guy. I forgot what his name was. He was a black guy, and he became friends with a KKK clan leader.
yeah.
Do you know about that, Lachlan?
Yeah, I just wouldn't be able to tell you names, but that's it's a good one because of how it changed his perspective. And you're right, like, he just grew up. The only way you get into the KKK, really, is if you grow up in a family where it's just so flawed and so obviously stupid that the only way that you actually would support that sort of thing is, one, if you're a sociopath, but two, if you're born into it. So he would have never had that perspective of having a friend.
His name is Daryl Davis.
Daryl Davis, LDD.
He became friends with the KKK clan leader, because and something he talks about. He said we had a mutual conversation. We didn't like each other, but we had mutual respect for each other. At least in that conversation, we wanted to hear each other out, and then they became friends. So, in saying so, a lot of our differences can go if we start listening to each other. Yeah, I think that sums it up, the whole podcast.
100%. What you touched on about your work ethic and planning out your whole day, that's something I really want to get into, because that's not something that I should be probably doing as well. But we'll open up that can of worms next episode, all right? So we'll get into that, mate, if you're keen, or even if we have the conversation off air.
Well, I think, we got, okay, the topics I noted down. We're going to do an episode about the whole China situation. Yep. That's one episode. We got the work ethics, and we've got, what was the last one we spoke about? Another episode we could make on.
Creative headspace as well.
Yeah, creative headspace.
And I remembered what you said. Remember how I forgot something? I G'd myself up and then I fucking had space my brain. Well, somehow it floated back into my mind. It was about psychology, sort of, but I thought of psychology because they're the ones that describe it. But you spoke about problems being solved with other problems, like not solutions.
Yeah.
It had to do with race, obviously. Like, we're into that discussion. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's essentially saying you can't cover one problem up with the other one. You have to figure out a solution and move on. You can't get stuck and keep doing that. It happens in society. It happens through, particularly, I think now it's that we're starting to understand it, but for a long time, people who were either diagnosed or were believed to have mental health issues, like, it was deemed as schizophrenia, and those sort of things were all lumped in. The extreme examples of schizophrenia and bipolar were lumped into depression, anxiety, and mental health. And what happened is it was just medicated. Everyone was medicated. That's the only way to treat an extreme example. If you're going to hurt yourself, you have to be sedated like a fucking horse. So even though people that had anxiety and depression, they weren't fucking given horse tranquilizer like these other people. They were still given benzopine and Xanax and all these extreme drugs. Like someone like Jordan Peterson, man, like nearly killed him, bro. And he's one of the best minds of our life, and it nearly killed him. Like, that sort of shit just fucking, it exists, man. Like, it's unbelievable. And now we're finally addressing mental health in society, and that's a beautiful thing. But I think that sparked my mind because that was a huge problem in society. And I think a lot of our issues can be related back to the lack of understanding of mental health and why people, if you look at, so in the US, for example, I think it's over 85% of shootings are gang-related, that sort of environment. And a lot of the other ones are people who are on these medications or who had a history of mental health issues. So for whatever reason, that sort of lumped it all in, and people thought people were just crazy, but they didn't. So they threw a problem solution at it. But the problem with medication is, back to the original point, it's a fucking problem. Medication is meant to be temporary.
100%, 110%. I could not agree with that more. I mean, just quickly touching on that, if you take back a few more years, no, a few more, maybe like, take back 80 years or 100 years before that, when people had the same problem of like schizophrenia, they were demonized. Literally, this person's got demons in him, right? So that's a whole other era,
like literally,
right?
they got fucking witch doctors to come in.
They go witch doctors to freaking whip them and all that stuff. Now fixing a problem with this, so we haven't really fixed that disposition. Now we just sedate them. I mean, what's different than actually whipping them than just sedating them? The problem is, if you think about what's happening, a lot of the mental health issues coming from is because now we've never done this, right? So let's say, if I have a problem, I'm too worried about talking to you is because I'm worried about the judgment that, because you will see me weak. Because if you really think about it, and that's what it comes down to. Maybe, I guess, as a person, I could become less
judgmental.
Something you
feel?
No, I'm just saying in general.
Do you feel that way?
No, not particularly.
No, okay.
I'm just using an example, right? So,
I'll tell you the way I feel afterwards.
I was just about to say what we could do. Let's say in this scenario, if you had some problem because you don't feel like you want to come talk to me, what I could do, I could be more accepting and seem less judgmental. So next person would come up to me and come to talk to me. So I guess that's once again comes back to become self-awareness. Where are you, problematic? Because when someone is going through that, obviously they're suffering a problem. They're suffering. What you could do is be the solution instead of judging them. And no matter what people say, how accepting they are, people are still judgmental. So I think we as a society, we could be less judgmental, then we would have less of that problem. And a lot of that is actually, some of it is, of course we're going to suffer from, problems when we don't have major problems because our perspective is not aligned. So all of a sudden, when you think about, a kid who's got so much energy and is bouncing off the wall, he's got schizophrenia, all of a sudden, they give him medicine.
ADD. Yeah.
Maybe he's just a kid who's got too much energy, Sugar, right? There's that. There's that. But yes, go on, what were you saying? What were you going to say about how you feel?
Yeah, that's it. The way I feel is, and I think I saw a lot of kids that went through that. I remember being in primary school and seeing the kids that were given their medication and that sort of thing. And it just, it didn't wreck a lot of them, but they suffered socially. But for me, I thought, so do you ever get to an example or a time where if you're not feeling well, do you ever have a blocker from talking to people? Like there's one thing you tell yourself, you're like, I'm not going to tell that person, or I don't want to talk to anyone. Have you ever gotten to that stage, or do you ever feel at that stage at any point?
I'm normally more internal. Like if I have a problem, I not necessarily shut down. I need like a day by myself to mostly not necessarily reflect, but I just need time off from people, and I normally tend to disappear.
Spend a lot of time with people.
I disappear. Yeah. So, and I normally, I don't know if that's healthy or not, whatever it is, but I normally just spend a day by myself because I also do feel like we don't spend enough time with ourselves. But also, Lachlan, but when I do have a problem, I do tend to talk to people. Like I remember telling you about one of the things that I was feeling shitty about. Remember I was talking, it was, one particular situation, which I will not talk about on this podcast.
Off-air convo, mate. Yeah. Off-air convo.
Off-air conversation.
We're talking about it 5 years time.
So I was feeling shitty about something.
Episode 450.
And you called me just on the right time, and I was like, "Hey, man, like this is the problem." I just messaged you the problem that I was talking about. I told you about that, and it actually made me feel better.
Yeah, I remember.
I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. This makes me feel better." So I don't necessarily think I feel like I'll be judged, especially from my friend. So I think I'm fine with that. I tend to
more than a friend, mate. Come on, now.
Yeah. Oh, my best friend, right? Or my brothers, right? But
just joke.
I think it's a level. I tend not to go to my parents with problems, but I tend to go to my parents when I'm annoyed about something. I tend to go more to my parents. But if I'm sad about something, I'll go to friends, which is kind of interesting. Because I feel like
Yeah, there's a pain thing. Like I grew up in the same sort of setting where our parents are very loving, but like there's certain things that I'll go to them and not so much, but they also give great advice even when I don't want them to and I'm too hard-headed, and then my mum will say something about Abby and then it's just like works. So it's good to listen to our parents, but I feel the same way. And for me, all it is I just don't want to talk. I'm the same, like a couple of days. Sometimes it's even 30 minutes. Sometimes I just got to go for a walk with the dogs and I'm good. Sometimes it's a cold shower and breathing in the shower. Sometimes it's a week or two, bro. So like it can vary, but I just don't want to talk to other people because you don't want to put like negative feelings on other people, or even if you do see other people, you won't be completely honest. And for me, I struggle with that. So socially, you can tell when I'm not talking about something because I'm an open book with a lot of things. So that's kind of what happens with me. So
On our earlier days of our friendships, I remember you going, this is earlier days of our friendship, like, hey man, what's happening?
yeah.
And you'll be like, no, I'm good, bro. I just don't feel like talking. Motherfucker,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
I do it to Charlotte. Yeah, I've got it.
But
It helps me, bro. But
no,
I tell you what happens.
it's a disposition on both ends.
Mm.
It's obviously I don't know the right way to prompt you to talk to me, and you don't know the right methodology of how to tell me that you need whether you need a moment or whether you need to be heard, because sometimes you need to be heard, sometimes you actually do need a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you saying?
No, that's interesting. It's like and like communicating and helping would always makes it better. That's the thing. But I'm really like analytical with myself about the way I talk. So if I don't feel like talking and I say something the wrong way, then I get pissed off about it for a few weeks. So that's kind of something weird that I do. But and it's all based off like just sometimes you need to reassess and you need that time, but I don't feel that way very often now, just because I've learned, and particularly the last few years I've learned how to, by just understanding that's a part of life. Maybe I wasn't taught how to overcome that when I was younger. So it's all good now, but it's just interesting being able to think about the things that you don't even sometimes talk about, and then being able to talk about it now like it's not a problem. But sometimes you don't feel like talking about stuff for whatever reason. So it all needs to be addressed differently. And I shouldn't be on medication for that. Like, even if I feel depressed or I feel anxious or I feel hopeless, like, I shouldn't be bloody sedated. But if I really wanted to, I could get medication. It's just not the right thing to do. I've had it before to help me sleep, and the side effects were just not worth it. So,
The thing is that patterns are always there, right?
Most people don't. Their brains don't work that way. They don't think about it that way. They just ends up becoming a vicious cycle for a lot of people.
100%.
That's why they're so addicted. I guess that's back to my original point about the medication. That's why we need to stop medicating all these cats.
100%. And I think we need to society address that as well. One of the problems that I was just about to say, I think I mentioned this, the patterns are always there. Because what happens is, it always starts with one, it's always like a downward spiral, right? It always starts with this. And I noticed, this is what I said, in 2 weeks ago, and a week ago, I wasn't feeling great, right? And I was feeling shitty, and I was feeling angry. And you notice you can see when I'm hard to get a hold of as well. I'm sure you on your end, you could see. I just look at the message, never reply. And I remember one particular day, I could see how it started. I stopped making my bed, and I'm 100% on a survey. I stopped making my bed. It was the first thing I stopped. And slowly, I stopped hanging my clothes on the coat rack. And then next thing you know, I stopped making my food. I started getting takeaway. And then all of a sudden, it all just kept on going downhill. All they took to get it back on track, first thing I did was like, okay, wake up. Today's going to be a good day. Made my bed. And then I was like, gonna have breakfast, gonna go for a run, and all those stuff. And then, I mean, is it just the fact that I felt better that I did it? Or is it actually the other way around, that the fact that I did those things made me feel better?
You scheduled, you got exercise, you got endorphins, you gave yourself dopamine, like you fucking made, even just from making a bed, like you gave yourself a good feeling. So you gave yourself a little bit of bloody dopamine for that reward system. And that's how we're designed to live our lives in a lot of ways. Like, and
the biggest thing is,
how long did you say? 2 weeks, or how long did you feel?
My downhill spiral was a week. Completely.
Yeah,
and that particular week, I actually called my mom, and I was like, "Fuck, I hate everything. I hate everything." Right, and that was the second week of the second wave of lockdown in Melbourne, in Victoria. I was like, "Man, I fucking hate this because I just go back into the gym. I hate this. What's the point of anything?" And I was like, "Wait, hold on a minute." Once again, perspective is like, "All right, gotta get this shit done slowly, surely you get back on track." And it's easy it's easy to just go and give into that and keep watching Netflix on fucking repeat, even though Netflix asking you, "Are you still watching?" And you're like, "Yes, motherfucker, I'm still watching. I've got no life. Don't judge."
Exactly right. I'm just on my phone in incognito, so just relax, right?
Just relax, right? And you do those things, and then life gets back on track. We all feel shit, and we all feel like that. I think it's important
It's
to
an hour and a
realize.
half into the podcast. We can say those things. It's all good. Yeah.
100%. We got to realize that we all feel like shit. It's okay. We're gonna have those weeks. Everyone's gonna have those weeks.
Yeah.
How we get out of them, and it's good. I'm not sure if it's good to have those weeks, because some people will say, "Oh, it's good to let yourself feel that." The only thing is, I feel at my best. I feel the happiest when I'm not that. So clearly, I'm gonna do my best to not be in that phase, because I get more out of life. In fact, I get like, how do I put this? When I'm happy and my energies are high, just random calls will come in and people will offer me business. Last week after this podcast thing I did, Lachlan, the new website I made, someone literally random called me and said, "Hey, let's work with this." How does that happen? I mean, once again, don't want to go too much into manifestation side of things, but obviously I feel great. I feel like I'm ready to take on the world. Even if the call came on the week that I was feeling shit, I would have not even answered, because I don't answer private numbers on those days. I mean, I don't answer private numbers on the best time, but that day I was like,
every now and again I'll take them on, but usually leave them alone. Yeah. If it's a random mobile number I don't have, I'll probably answer it. But when I'm not feeling the best, fuck off. If I'm feeling good, I'll bring that motherfucker on. And it might even be an old friend or someone that, if you got a new phone and you just don't have that number anymore, and that'll make your day too. Like if I get calls from people that I know from Sydney, like that'll fucking change my day in the best of times. So
100%. And one of the things I was going to say, and this is one thing that I did over the last quarantine. I haven't done enough of this quarantine. I went through my Facebook list of Messenger, and I was like, I'm going to message people. I'm going to message people that I care about the most and tell them the honest things that I feel about them and why I appreciate them. And it was actually made me feel nice. And I'm sure it helped other people as well. And
yep.
So
100%. That's a perfect example. Yeah.
Be there for people. And I guess hopefully people are there for you as well. Same thing, goes for me, you, everyone. Have fucking perspective.
Have perspective. Have what was the other P? Perspective.
Work.
Yeah, and there was another P. There was perspective. I don't know. Was it purpose? Not sure.
Have purpose. Who knows? I'll go through the podcast.
We'll figure it out, maybe. Yeah, that's it. We'll name it. This has been so much fun, bro. Hour and a half has flown by, and doing this is another thing that it's already made me feel heaps better just doing this, and that's another thing we didn't do for a little while. So I guess what I'll finish on is a thought that you got, and this can be another episode because we think of our episodes on the fly, but kind of being able to channel our world or our passion, our lives into different outlets allows us to clear up other areas of our life. So if you're pretty sure or you're working hard on a career, your personal life is probably going to get better if you're doing the right things there, because you're just putting energy into one area, and it kind of frees up bullshit. Even if you're dealing with stress in one area, if you really care about it, you can deal with that stress. So I think it's just so important to try to have outlets and try to do things if you're not feeling the best way, even just one thing that you like or one thing that gets you up in the morning or one thing that'll help, and then that can build from there.
That's pretty much it.
And this is one of those outlets, brother.
100%. It makes me feel good. But talking about outlet, I do have something that's been pissing me off and I would like to get off my chest.
Please.
This is apart from all the other things that I whinged about today. So this one is really interesting, right? So I'm obviously, many people know by this podcast and would have learned by now that I work in marketing, right? And high-end structural marketing, infrastructure marketing. And I've been very offended, truly offended by people, especially people who've got, not only you've got, maybe you've got some following on Instagram, right? And there's people out there who think because they've got a fucking Instagram account and maybe they've got 5,000 followers or 10,000 followers, they understand marketing. And they've been actually talking to me like I'm a fucking idiot. It's not like I studied anything, and it's not like I fucking, wrote half of the, write coding for it or whatnot. But, and they actually talk to me like I'm the fucking idiot who doesn't understand marketing. Anyway, so that's something been grinding my gears. once again, I need to take it easy and I need to understand from them.
What makes them do that? Like, why do they question you?
Because well, they say, this is what they say to me. They goes, well, if you're a marketer, how come you don't have a following? Like, well, that's not what my work is. My work is to build infrastructure so people like you can have a following. That's what I do. It's like, well, it doesn't make sense. Anyone, if you could build that following, you would. You can't. I'm like, well, I just don't really care. That's not my priority. Anyway, the point is, but they've been having a run, like one particular person this comes from.
So all you can do is like create content and just show them real world examples. Like, it's just like giving free advice. It's like, this is what you do, motherfucker. I can help you out because like I'm a genuine person. I actually care and I know what I'm talking about. But that's the challenge you're going to have to deal with, you know.
100%.
But it's also good that you're addressing it because you need to. But like it's fucking motivation, brother. Like that's the 100%. Shit that's got to be your fuel. Eh?
Oh, 100%. I love haters. Nothing more. I love the haters. It's like, fuck yeah, motherfucker. But you know, it's just, that's another thing about perspective, right? Because once you know a piece of knowledge without the concept, the complete concept, your behavior changes. You know, it's like I remember talking about this with religion, right? You go to Bible, Quran, any other religious book, and take out one line and run around with it. That line could be destructive if you don't know the whole, paragraph.
That's right.
Right. So it's important.
The whole chapter.
Yeah, whole chapter. Yeah. So it's really important to not take things out of context because you don't know what the situation is. Same goes for me. Maybe that person does know a secret that I don't know about marketing. Maybe I could learn from that person. But generally speaking, chances are if I'm generally who understands marketing and understand the mechanics of this system, you think you'd hear that person out instead of saying, hey, I've got 5,000 followers on Instagram, so clearly I'm a better marketer than you are. Not really. You work at a cafe.
Usually just go into the account. If you go into the account, what usually comes up? Is there a few examples of what might come up?
On that person's account?
On the 5,000 followers, yeah. Like what comes up? Like how do they get there?
Linktree with the OnlyFans and bunch of ass and boobs.
Yep.
So
sex sells, doesn't it?
Sex sells. Yeah, so maybe I'm not a good marketer because I don't have. I don't know. Okay, that's a whole other topic.
Anyway. Mate, in a world where we can, in a world of the Kardashians and the Jenners, mate, you can become whoever you want, mate. So if you want to get boobs, mate, I'm behind you. No, anyway, I think we're running into a deep hole there. But
all right, too easy. This has been an incredible podcast.
Thanks,
before I let you wrap up, I was going to plug our brand new website, which is very excited about. It's the cleverdummies.podcast.com. Check it out. It's an incredible design. We love the design. We got the whole podcast refaced, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
With our new energy.
It looks amazing.
It looks amazing. It's catchy. I think people are loving it. So if you watch, check it out. Check out our website just to see what it looks like. It's a mobile compatible app, which I'm very excited about because who doesn't love a mobile compatible app?
That's right. Club Dummies podcast, baby.
Check it out and
Spotify, mate. You'll see it on the new logo.
Woo. That's right, Spotify. But if you don't have Spotify, you can actually go to our website, which is may I add mobile compatible. So check it out. And thank you. Give us a shout out. Say hello. You could be on our next podcast if you have an issue.
For example, right, I open my phone up right now and I go onto the website. What does it play off?
It just plays it on the website. That's the best part, and you can exit out of it. It's brilliant.
So you don't need to pay $10 a month for Spotify. Nope. You don't need to have an iPhone and podcast. You don't need to scroll through Stitcher for hours. You can just go on the website.
Just cleverdummies.podcast.com. Mobile compatible, and dare I say, we have the mobile app coming out soon as well.
I was going to lead into that, but I needed you to obviously lead it because you're the one that or you would know someone who would be behind the infrastructure. So
mobile app coming out soon. This is getting bigger and bigger by the day.
It's just the way of the future, man, and also it's the easy way to bring everything together in a lot of ways. So it just makes sense. So I can't wait for it.
We're giving Spotify a run for their money, but I don't know how they feel about it.
Joe Rogan's $100 million contract, mate. Look out, baby.
They'll be fine. All right, this is it. Woohoo!
Thanks, brother. Very good, mate. So yeah, we'll figure out the title. Don't worry about that. This has been a heap of fun. Love your work, mate. have a very good night if you're listening to this, if you're during the day on the way to work, wherever you are. God love you. Stay strong, stay in it. Thank you so much for your support. Check us out on Instagram, Clever Dummies, Apple Podcasts, all the platforms, on the website, on Spotify, Facebook Live coming soon, maybe not. Love your work, and give your mum a kiss for me. We're out, baby.
Bye.